welcome back. It's time now for Media Watch. And James Creedon joins me now. Good evening to you, James.
Good evening, Tom.
We're going to start by looking at some conflicting views in the US media over the killing of Anwar al-Awlaki. It's a difficult one to pronounce.
It is
actually.
indeed.
And unsurprisingly, not everyone is agreeing on the methods that were employed by the US government.
Right, and I suppose just to have a look at some of those voices in this debate as to what happened in Yemen and this drone attack. We'll take a look first of all at Salon.com. There's an article there by Glenn Greenwald. Now, he's been a very vocal critic of these drone attacks, and he's particularly critical today of the fact that this is a US citizen. The due process free assassination of US citizens is now a reality, reads that headline. And he said no effort was made to indict Mr. al-Awlaki for any crimes, despite substantial doubts over whether he had any operational role with Al-Qaeda. Also, when al-Awlaki's father, who also is a US resident, al-Awlaki was born in the US, when he
New
sought
Mexico, wasn't he?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and when his father sought a court order to have to bar Obama from killing his son, he was told that this decision was a state secret. So basically, what Greenwald is saying here is that the U.S. government has seized and exercised exactly the power the Fifth Amendment was designed to bar, and the Fifth Amendment states no person shall be deprived of life without due process of law. And he says what's most amazing about all of this is that most U.S. citizens are now going to applaud this blatant breach of the U.S. Constitution, essentially, or of the first and the Fifth Amendment. Now, if we look at what Andrew Sullivan is saying over in the Daily Beast on his blog, The Dish, he has exactly the opposite point of view. He's saying this is a time of war. This is the nature of war. If he's a U.S. citizen, that's all very well, but he's also part of a broader war against the United States. And he says that Obama has done in 2 years what Bush failed to do in 8. The headline of that article is "The Un-Bush." So he's saying essentially that Obama's doing a much better job in a much more discreet way at doing what Bush said he would do as regards the war on terror. So two very conflicting views there on what happened in Yemen.
All right, we're going to have a look now at a new movement in the United States, on Wall Street, in fact, and it's called Occupy Wall Street. It seems to be gathering steam, and it's another display of popular revolt in the world.
That's right, and the thing is that this generated something like 80 arrests last weekend, but the mainstream media didn't cover it very broadly, and indeed that was one of the criticisms of this movement, that despite some very questionable police tactics, the mainstream media didn't really cover it immediately. But then videos such as this started being loaded up online. It shows a certain amount of police, I suppose you could say brutality. They're using pepper spray on protesters that don't seem to be really stepping out of line or to merit that sort of treatment. It has over 470,000 views on YouTube already. So that did draw a lot of attention to this movement. And you can see here on the New Yorker's website, they are now saying that the police, in fact, have contributed to what was a relatively marginal display of a relatively innocuous demonstration, as they put it. They've made it into a riveting piece of political theatre, and it has now made headlines around the world. Now, they're saying in the US, really, it functions, the country functions as an interest group democracy. Now, an example they give of that is the Tea Party. And so if this Occupy Wall Street movement, which for now is not really occupying Wall Street, it's some 2,000 people in a park a few blocks away, if they are managing to shift that debate perhaps further to the left, that can only be a healthy thing. So that's what the New Yorker is saying. And just to give a broader sense of the support they're getting, Radiohead is going to play for the Wall Street protesters today. They're also getting support from unions. That's on the Slate website, the Slatest. And so they're getting a lot of celebrity support. Susan Sarandon was there as well. Noam Chomsky, the famous left-wing intellectual. So they are, in fact, generating more and more support. So let's see where that one goes. It could continue to grow in terms of support, I guess.
Indeed, 2011 has been filled with surprises. Finally, an article about empathy in the New York Times.
This one caught my eye. It's an interesting piece by David Brooks, an op-ed in the New York Times. Now, he's collated a lot of information together, and he's saying there's so much talk nowadays about empathy and how you have to have empathy for your fellow human beings, and empathy is what drives us to act in favour of others. He said really that's not actually true, and the science seems to show that empathy, while it makes you more aware of people's suffering, it's not what actually motivates you to take moral action. And he says there are many examples of that. For example, even during World War II, soldiers who felt a great degree of guilt at bringing perhaps people into gas chambers, but it didn't stop them from doing it. And there are all sorts of examples of that. You might see somebody homeless on the opposite side of the street, but do you cross the street to do something about it? Usually no. But what he says, some influences which we think of as trivial are much stronger. For example, a temporary burst of positive emotion. And there was a study in the 70s showing that if you found a coin in a phone box, a dime, on coming out of that phone box, there's an 87% chance you would help a passerby who dropped a bundle of papers. Somebody who didn't find the coin, only a 4% chance. So if you're pretty happy with yourself about finding some money, you're probably going to do more in the heel of the hunt to help somebody than actual empathy. So empathy is a sideshow, according to this piece. It's very interesting, probably merits a more in-depth read than I can do justice to in a minute or two. But
all right, just shows that what goes around comes around.
Exactly.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much
Tom.
indeed. That was Media Watch. Well, still to come, we've got more news, sports and culture. That's after this short break. Stay tuned.